Hey there, it's PK Beats, and the DLC gals are finally out. With them has come a lot of competitive hype, Sakurai acting a little sus, and more Raighne is in the game now, which is the music you're hearing in the background. It's probably my favorite Xenoblade Chronicles 2 song. So which of the Beyblades do you prefer using the most? The sweet, kind, and generous Pyra, or Mithril? Leave your comments down below, and be sure to stick around to see me cover a lot of interesting stuff like whether or not Pyra's blazing end can be stolen, or if mashing affects their final smashes, or any other fact that's not yet completely basic knowledge considering how new the characters are. Let's start with that first one though. Mr. Boombox asks if villager can pocket Pyra's blazing end, and what happens after that. Blazing End is probably the second most unique aspect of this character, outside of, their ability to switch. It's a move where, during its duration, you are completely unable to attack or do anything other than move and dodge, even if the move doesn't make use of the sword. You're even unable to taunt, or switch to Mithril or anything like that. You can only move or dodge. Funny enough, when you input grab, you just shield, which might seem kinda weird at first, right? But really, as stated in the tutorial video of Smash Ultimate and all the other games, the input for grab is shield plus attack. Now, basically anyone using grab just has an input for it, right? But if you hit the shield button and the attack button at the same time, you still grab. So I'm guessing since attacking is just completely disabled, but dodging isn't, all that goes through when you do the grab input is the shield portion of the command. There are a few other things I want to talk about regarding this move, but let's get into that question now. In the presentation, Sakurai pointed out how the blazing end could be reflected. So, like many other things that can be reflected, it can also be pocketed. That's right, Villager or Isabelle can just steal Pyra's sword before she gets it back. So what, is Pyra just left completely defenseless for the rest of the match, almost as useless as Rex's? Nah, her sword just pops back into existence. All's good. And it happens instantly with no lag. Though the sword is still in Isabelle's pocket here and can be released whenever. And considering how the drawback of not being able to use any other move while it's out doesn't really apply to Isabelle, it's actually really powerful. Though it's worth pointing out that you can only pocket the sword before the big spinning hitbox starts. Otherwise it just won't work. And the same is true for normal reflectors. It has to be before the attack stops moving and does that spin thing. Also, if the move gets reflected, Pyra will still be unable to attack or anything like before. Not that it would really matter, since if it gets reflected, chances are you're getting hit too, but this is still good to keep in mind. Now you might be wondering about how this move interacts with items, and it's pretty simple actually. When the sword is out, you cannot pick up items, as the action of picking them up uses your attack button, which doesn't function right now. And if you're already holding an item, you still won't really be able to use it for the same reasons, but you also can't even throw it or drop it since those inputs are your grab inputs, which, as we said before, is just a shield and attack input. So there's not much you can do with items when using this move, but it's not impossible. Items that just have to touch you in order to activate do still work. And the biggest thing to look out for is the screw attack. This item isn't set to an attack input or anything, but rather your jump, which you can still do. Meaning you can effectively use your screw attack while the sword is out, which is actually insanely useful. And you can still technically use the green shell by jumping on it. Basically, any action that doesn't require the attack or special inputs in any way can still be done. I'm gonna stick with Pyra for a bit and cover this prompt from Javivaki regarding Pyra's up special and my infinite portal setup. I've covered this quite a few times on my channel now, so basically just know that up specials like Chroms or Ikes will eventually slow down if they're active for long enough, which can happen with this infinite portal setup. So when we test this with Pyra, we can see— oh wow, that's actually really fast. Okay, just gotta adjust the portals and— alright. So now with Pyra, we can test this and see— I don't think it's getting any slower. I left it like this for a while too, and her speed did not change. And when I added wind, she still didn't slow down any. So contrary to the move similar to it, her speed will not gradually decrease. Unless it takes hours or something, I don't know. Next, Ruby Crystals asks if spamming the B button will increase the damage from Pyra's final smash. This is how it works in the game, and Sakurai himself showed it in the presentation, but when you use Burning Sword in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, at the very end of the move you have to mash to make the move do more damage. We've seen it in the past how Sakurai could sneak in tiny references to a move, like how Kenshin Ryuken does more damage if you mash, which is a reference to how the move works in its origin game like we've covered recently on the channel. So does Xenoblade see the same love? With no mashing, it does 40.8%. And with mashing, it still does 40.8%. So that confirms it. Sakurai hates Xenoblade and was lying when he said he prefers Pyra. Jokes aside, I am actually kind of surprised that they didn't implement something like this. Though this move isn't the only time you have to mash to increase effectiveness, Blazing End also needs mashing in order to deal more damage in the game. But just like before, I didn't notice any difference between mashing and no mashing here. Oh yeah, Mithril, let's talk about her now. Photon Edge was shown to need mashing too, but this does not change the damage. And finally, Sacred Arrow, which also didn't seem affected by mashing. Though this move's weird multi-hit aspect does make the damage less consistent, but still, its variance didn't seem dependent on mashing. Okay, now that we're finally on Mithril, let's chat about her. First, it wasn't mentioned in the direct, but Mithril can turn around her Lightning Buster after it started charging. This could catch people off guard when they were first released, but at this point I'm mostly just mentioning this for the more casual audience who still hasn't picked up on it. Also, the charge of her sword here has a hitbox, which can catch folk off guard, especially on platforms. Also, when Sakurai said that this move doesn't hit behind Mithra, that's kinda not true. Like, at all. Also, there's something to say about one of Mithra's taunts.
Think you can take me?
You know, this sounds pretty normal on the surface level, right? Until you realize...
Think you can take me? Think you can take me? Think you can take me?
Think you can take me?
Okay, I wanted to leave the joke there, but I know plenty of folk who haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and don't really get what I just meant. In that game, there's a section where you fight these enemies called Ardanian soldiers. They're like the common grunts found in that section, there's loads of them. And the thing is, when you fought them, they had a select few voice lines that they would say so many times to the point where it actually got hypnotic. I'm pretty sure this has since been patched out or toned down or something, but you can check out this footage for yourself.
Take me! Think you can take me?
All of these phrases are now very popular in the Xenoblade community, with Mithra's taunt being one of them. And I'm aware that this is not necessarily an uncommon phrase or anything, but I have a hunch that they added this to sort of reference this little in-joke, which wouldn't be the first time they added a meme taunt to a Xenoblade character.
I'm really feeling it! Now it's shulk time!
Speaking of memes, I've got a few things to mention regarding Rex now, much to my dismay. First, Brandon Pierce asks if Rex will be cut from Pyra and Mithra's taunts if there's too many players present. That's how it works for Joker and Morgana. If there's 5 or more players in the match, Morgana will stop appearing in Joker's taunts. But with Pyra and Mithra, Rex will still appear to cheer them on, even if there's 5 players present or even 8. So good for him, I guess he was useful for something. Also, even if Pyra or Mithra's size is changed, the Rex that appears in their up taunt will stay the same. Now in Custom Smash for the introduction animation and final smashes, Rex's size will change, but not for the up taunt. Meaning he can either be this titan towering over them, or this little baby. Wow, it looks like he's about to get kicked in the groin. Ooh, there it is. Also, I saw this from Overline on Twitter, but if you reverse Pyra or Mithra during their up taunts, you can actually see their faces, which is normally impossible. Alright, that was a lot of nonsense, so let's go back into some interesting stuff like the switch mechanic. This switch move is actually really good. It doesn't stale, nor does its intangibility from what I've seen, and it's fast, and you retain your momentum when doing it, so overall it's really smooth and really easy to spam. Now, when interacting with items, it's kind of easy to grasp how this works. Whatever you had equipped or were holding before the switch stays there after the switch, even your final smash. As long as the item lets you even input the switch move, you'll keep it after switching. So yes, you can't really switch when holding a heavy object, or the hammers or anything restrictive like that. Oddly enough though, Snake C4 when attached to one of them will fall off when they switch, which kinda ruins this aspect of them. It's really weird though because the sticking items like the gooey bomb and such stay on the character after they switch. It makes it sound like it's being replaced onto them,
Right here.
but regardless it still stays around, not falling to the ground. It is especially odd when you consider that Olimar's Pikmin will also stay attached to them when they switch, as do effects like the flower and whatnot. Pokemon Trainer's switching move is slightly different here in that any items and equipment they're holding will be dropped afterwards, except for any items that affect the character itself, like the metal box and whatever. However, everything else is consistent, like with the gooey bomb sticking on them, the flower effect staying, the Pikmin staying attached, and yes, the C4 falling off. For whatever reason, Snake C4 in particular was done pretty dirty. Speaking of being done dirty, Pep showed me a clip with a really weird interaction in it with Ditto. Normally when you spawn in a Ditto, any assists that they pick up in spawn will be counted as your own, as if you spawned them, and thus obviously they won't hurt you, right? But if you spawn Ditto while being Pyra and have that Ditto spawn in, say, Vulpix, if the Ditto despawns in your Mythra instead of Pyra, the Vulpix that Ditto spawned in will actually hurt you now. What's especially crazy is that I didn't notice anything like this for any of the other Pokemon or even assist trophies that I tested. For whatever reason, for specifically either Vulpix or Alolan Vulpix, if your current character is different than the one that Ditto was when they spawned it in, said Pokemon will now harm you as well. It's like for these Pokemon specifically, after each projectile they perform a check to see if you belong to them. And I guess when Ditto despawns and your character is different than what Ditto's was, you just assume that you're not the owner or something? That's mostly just conjecture, though this is really weird, as the Pokemon shouldn't just suddenly decide you're not its owner like this, especially since no other Pokemon does this. And this also happens with Pokemon Trainer, if you swap from, say, Squirtle to Ivysaur after the Squirtle Ditto had despawned. Vulpix is now aggro against you too, so be wary of this. Now there's just a handful of general things I want to go over based on no one individual question or fact submission. Now when Sakurai revealed 2 of the new spirits in this presentation, they were blurred out for, I guess, spoiler reasons or whatever. Not that Smash has ever been against completely unnecessary spoilers. But I don't know, when I saw that the 2 spirits were blurred out in the presentation, I guess I just kinda thought they'd be like that? In the game, you know? But no, they aren't. They look completely normal, which makes me wonder why they even bothered censoring it in their presentation. It's not like anyone was gonna complete Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in that 12-hour period, but whatever. I still think this version of Rex looks like a gaming console or something, but it's alright. Next, watch this little clip of me practicing against a level 9 Mythra CPU. Did you see that? Did you see that combo? It's a down tilt to footstool air dodge down to jab lock to forward smash. This isn't just some weird one-off thing either. When I was practicing them when they first launched, this happened to me twice. And looking on Twitter, I've seen a ton of different tweets of people saying they got hit with this same exact combo. If you don't really realize it, this combo is actually pretty technical. If you're a competitive player, it's not that wacky, but it's still pretty impressive. So seeing that a CPU is not only pulling it off, but doing it consistently, shows that this is a combo intentionally baked into these characters' AIs, which I think is really awesome. It makes use of mechanics we don't normally see mentioned by Nintendo or anyone else official, especially the jab lock, which I feel like CPUs rarely ever even use like they should. So that's kind of insane. Oh yeah, briefly speaking of combos, I just want to give a quick shout out to a website called ComboBros. It's a developing site meant to organize combo charts for individual characters, along with an events page where anyone can advertise their own Smash related stuff. It's a new site and it still needs help filling some parts out, so I hope anyone interested gives it a look-see. Not sponsored, by the way. Oh, another thing to mention is the alt icons. I didn't know why this came up now all of a sudden, but a ton of people have been mentioning how Pyra and Mythra's blue alt has their icon with blue hair, despite the fact that their actual hair stays the same color as before. I guess the difference is more pronounced here. But character alts aren't really any stranger to changing colors just to differentiate themselves from another. Look at Rosalina and Luma here. The only differences between their alts are their just colors. Yet their alt icons change the crown colors despite the fact that their crowns don't actually change. It's especially prominent with someone like, say, Sephiroth, whose hair color doesn't even change a little, but his stock icons have them change completely to sort of match whatever outfit he's wearing. So yeah, this quirk with Pyra and Mythra's blue alt isn't really exclusive to them. And lastly, while mentioning alts, it used to be a huge issue in the game where, when you tried to select an alt, it took forever for that alt's image to load, which made it a total pain to select a character, since you had to wait and wait for a while to see if you were even on the right alt color. Now though, it does still take a little bit, but nowhere near as long, it seems. And this is a really welcome change. I believe how it works is that the alts start loading from Mario and just sort of go across the character select screen from there, which is why characters up here load instantly, but the DLC takes a while to load. Though funny enough, Pyra and Mythra's alts will be loaded immediately, contrary to anyone else down there, so I guess they were given some newbie privilege or whatever. Anyhow though, that'll be it for today. I'd like to thank my patrons Burbo, Raighne, Parade Dino, Dane Play, Feurolant, Skully, Keckothedragon, Meep, Skim Milk, Skye, and Stan Luna. I tried to keep things as organized and well paced as I could, but with any fresh new DLC release, there's going to be a lot to go over. And I wanted to cover a lot of it before it became too irrelevant, you know? I've got a lot of other things to test out regarding these characters for my next video, though I'm still currently uncertain if it'll be enough to cover an entire video specifically about them. but there'll still be plenty to go over, as there's even a few topics I didn't touch, like I completely glossed over the new stage. Regardless though, I hope these fun little facts and bits of trivia and whatnot were entertaining for you. It felt a little bit more like a news roundup than your usual random facts video, but I hope that's alright considering the nature of the DLC. Next video has some really interesting things to test, so I hope you stick around. So with that, stay motivated, stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.